After having success with their first run in the arcade, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles got themselves a second arcade game, and this time they are traveling through time. Even before that third film came out, the live action film. So brace yourselves and hold on to your shells, because here's a review of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Turtles in Time video game. Cowabunga, dudes, this is Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. So, greetings, my fellow YouTubers, and welcome to Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. My name is Doyle, better known to you as the Big D, and this time around, I'm bringing to you another video game review. Now, since earlier this month, I had been reviewing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video game series. Now, I figure I better finish this month off with another great game. I really liked playing this game on the console, but I've never actually played the arcade version of this, but I've seen numerous plays of it. It looks really good and what have you. So prepare yourselves as our heroes in a half shell go on a quest to retrieve the Statue of Liberty by going through time in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time is a beat-em-up game released by Konami in 1991. It came out in the arcades and it was a sequel to the 1989 arcade game itself. It also would later get ported to the Super Nintendo as well, which I'll talk about that in just a sec. Or maybe even more. Well, I'll talk about this console port of this in a little while. Anyway, yes. It was also released under Teenage Mutant Ninja Hero Turtle, excuse me, my mistake, in Europe because Ninja was not allowed to can be used. Of course, it's a scrolling beat-em-up game based on the animated series from 1987, which of course was already being big even more with being on major network television on CBS after he had just been canceled from syndication. Let's see. Anyway, the game's release was March 1991. It has been released on console, as I'll mention in a little bit, and it had been re-released on newer consoles since 2005, as it appears in Unlockable in the third game based on the 4Kids series called Mutant Nightmare. Ubisoft released a 3D remake called Turtles in Time Reshelled as a download for Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. Now then, while this game has a little slightly more different feel, of a story than the other games have, you won't be seeing one of their colleagues like April or Master Splinter. This time around, it's going to be even bigger. Now, we start out with the Turtles watching a newscast of their main reporter, April O'Neil, one Sunday evening as she's at Liberty Island. However, Krang flies in a massive version of his exoskeleton suit and steals the Statue of Liberty. Once that occurs, old Shredhead appears by hijacking the airwaves to laugh at the Turtles. So the Turtles jump into action, going from downtown New York and pursue the foot to the streets and the city sewers, then to the Technodrome in the console port, which again I'll get to that in a bit, where Shredder sends the Turtles through a time warp. And therefore they must fight Shredder's army in both the past and the future, going from prehistoric times to the distant future in order to get home to return the statue back. Like its predecessor, the game was available in the arcades in 2 and 4-player versions. The 2-player version, you get to choose one of the 4 turtles, whereas in 4-player versions, you're assigned to all of them if you all play together. Each playable character has his own strengths and weaknesses. New features include the ability to execute a power attack by hitting an enemy several times in a row, and the ability to slam foot soldiers into surrounding enemies. The game features the same control scheme of the previous game. It uses a joystick for movement, an attack button, and jump button. And certain combinations of those can make a turtle run, perform a slide or dash, jump higher, perform a stationary or directed air attack, or perform a special attack. Which, of course, that would cost you some of your health. Now then. Now you'll start out by going through New York, and then other places transport the turtles to representations of various historical eras. In each level, players face enemies from both the cartoon series as well as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze, which was recently released in theaters. Exactly that same year in the same month, including the Foot Soldiers and the Stone Warriors. Now, your bosses include characters like Baxter Stockman in his fly form, Metalhead, Pizza Monsters, the Rat King, who you face in the SNES port, Toka and Razar. Let's see. And Cement Man, you only face him in the arcade game. Rest includes Shredder in a massive mech suit in the Technodrome stage, Slash, Bebop and Rocksteady, Leatherhead, Krang in his android suit, Krang in his flying saucer, and Shredder in the arcade game, and then the SNES port Super Shredder. Again, I'll get to that in a little bit. The original music of the game soundtrack was composed by Mutsuhiko Izumi. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. If I did, I apologize. A veteran of TMNT who also composed the music for this game's predecessor. Kazuhiko Uehara and Harumi Yoko arranged the SNES port. Both of whom went on to produce several titles for Konami, including the follow-up game to this, Tournament Fighters. Anyway, this was really, really something. In addition to the original music score, the attract mode of the arcade game is known for featuring the song Pizza Power, which was taken from the TMNT live concert known as the Coming Out of Their Shells Tour. I don't really have much recollection of hearing about this, but since I've been hearing about it in videos for where other people review this game, that's what I found out. Game's music was released as part of the compilation album Konami All-Stars 1993 Music Station of Dreams, which King Records released in 1992. Now, the 2005 version from Mutant Nightmare features new music and voices updated to match the 4-Kid series. This was also the case for Turtles in Time Reshield, unfortunately. However, it would be released as part of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection the previous year, where the soundtrack is completely restored and everything, and it has both arcade and Super Nintendo versions. Which reminds me, here's my copy of the game itself. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Turtles in Time, just to continue after the game's release on the NES, like Manhattan Project, which was released earlier that year in the US. Yes, because the SNES port was released a half a year later after Manhattan Project came out in August of '92. It was released a month before that in July in Japan, and months later in Europe. Anyway, I used to have this, but now, of course, years later, I buy it back, and I'm still pretty good at this game. This is definitely one of the great beat-em-ups I've ever played on Super Nintendo. Well, actually, the only one I played until I got back into classic gaming, where I got to play other titles like Batman Returns, also from Konami, and several others. Anyway, since its release, it got some pretty good scores, just some for the arcade, but more for the SNES port though. It became, following its release, it became Konami's best-selling arcade title, and the home console version was the top-selling Super Nintendo game in September of '92. Anyway, critics found that the second game was largely similar to the previous game when the arcade game came out. They felt that it was a net improvement over its predecessor on all points, including graphics, music, and gameplay. Overall, the game was hailed for staying true to its source material. The SNES port really was praised for its additional stages and gameplay modes, which you have to beat the game on hard mode to get the actual ending. EGM, that's Electric Gaming Monthly, gave it unanimous scores 9 out of 10 each, applying the fun gameplay, new moves, the accurate recreation of the arcade version's graphics, and the two-player versus mode. Though they criticize that the game is too easy. Well, that's true. It is factually easy, even on the hard mode. Just as long as you know how to do it and what have you. But nevertheless, I feel like Turtles in Time was definitely a very fun game, and I really do love and what have you. Now, once you see the you see the that Krang had stolen the statue, you jump into action in scene one where you'll go through a the construction site and what have you. Well, skyscraper that's being worked on. You'll have to face the foot soldiers, and you'll also encounter Krang's exosuit firing out laser blasts about halfway through. Then you'll take on Baxter for your boss. The second stage has you going through the streets of New York, face off with more foot soldiers and what have you, and also boxing robots. But those were removed for the SNES port, and Roadkill Rodney from the first game was put in its place. Now, let's see here. Once you get through that, you'll face Metalhead as your boss. The third stage is a sewer surfing stage. Well, that's what it's called, sewer surfing. You'll have to watch out for obstacles and take on the foot soldiers. At the end, you encounter pizza monsters for kind of a boss battle, but maybe a mini boss or sub boss battle in the arcade version. In the SNES port, you go up against the Rat King. Once you beat the the pizza monster, Shredder will banish you through time. But after you defeat Rat King, you go to the Technodrome and go up against more foot soldiers as well as the Mousers. And at about close to the end, you'll face up with Toka and Razor, who you actually face later on in the arcade game. And then once you go on an elevator, then you'll go on to face Shredder in the mech suit. Where this is where the fun really starts. You have to throw foot soldiers right into the screen. Let me give you a little freeze frame of the arcade version and show you what that's like. You see, you can throw foot soldiers right at the screen. Not just the SNES port, but in the arcade version. Once you've taken care of old Shredhead, he's going to transport you through time. Then you'll go into prehistoric times, where you have to get through more foot soldiers as well as the Stone Warriors. Go through them, and you'll face with Cement Man in the arcade game for your boss. In the SNES port, it's Slash you take on. Then, once you're done with that, you go to the pirate ship level, where you'll face off with more foot soldiers and Stone Warriors. And you'll face off with Toka and Razor in that stage, and Bebop and Rocksteady in the SNES port. After that, you'll be transported to the Old West, where you're on the train and what have you. Almost kind of feels like you're playing a stage that could have been, well, a stage that kind of feels like you're playing Sunset Riders, which of course also from Konami, which later did get a port for Super Nintendo the following year in '93. And then once you get through all the foot soldiers and stone warriors, you face Slayer-head. Unlike Manhattan Project, he's much more easier. After that, you'll go to a futuristic stage called Neon Knight Riders, which I almost forgot to bring this up. For the sewer surfing level on Super Nintendo the the SNES port of Neon Knight Riders, they were considered bonus stages. You had to try and get all the bonus pizzas, which in the sewer surfing stage, it's a box with a question mark. In the Neon Knight Rider stage, which it's not like straightforward. It's kind of like like you're playing F-Zero and what have you, and it's a question mark in a circle. You also have to take on foot soldiers and in choppers as well. And of course in the sewer servant stage, you face off with pizza monsters. If you can accumulate all of this, you get a big 50-point bonus. And after you get now back to Neon Knight Riders, when you complete that, you'll face Krang in his exosuit. Once you beat him, he escapes. You'll get transported to a starbase, and you will take on Krang in his flying saucer. Once you get through past all the Mousers, you'll face them, the little Annihilator Walker robots, and of course more foot soldiers and stone warriors. And then you'll face Krang in his flying saucer. After that, you go through a portal that'll take you back to the Technodrome where Shredder's ready to cook up some turtle soup. You'll face Shredder in his regular form in the arcade version, but in the SNES version, you face Super Shredder, who like Leatherhead, unlike the Manhattan Project, he's a little easy as well. But you just gotta know what you're doing, what have you. A fun fact. Though I've actually done this with Super Shredder a few times. If you can get through a boss battle without taking a single hit, you get a big amount of points and what have you. And once you're done with that, you win. You only get a message from Splinter if you beat the game on easy and normal mode on the SNES port. But in the hard mode, you get the full ending, where April gives the announcement that the Turtles have overcome Shredder. And Statue of Liberty's right back where it is. So now you know. Now then, before I finish this, let me go ahead and give you a little freeze frame of the SNES game. Now here's a freeze frame from the Technodrome exclusive stage from the Turtles in Time SNES game. And there you see Turtles take on Razor and Toka. That's showing those funny little reactions once they're hit. Oh yeah, and like other Turtles games, bosses start flashing red when they're almost defeated. Along the way, you can get pizza to replenish your health. If you lose all your lives, your game's over. But you do have like a limited amount of continues for the SNES version. But I think you can beat this without much trouble and what have you. So overall, I think it's worth looking into. This has been re-released in an arcade form, and you can get a loose card of this. I've been looking. You can get it for a pretty reasonable price, mostly on the site Etsy. Yeah, I can see they've got it for a pretty reasonable price. A loose card of this would probably be your best hope, as long as you can find it for a reasonable price and what have you. So anyway, Turtles in Time, I think it's a cool game, and I think you'll really like it if you give it a try, definitely. So anyway, what did you think of Turtles in Time? Let me know in the comment section below. If you liked the video, click the like button, subscribe, and be a part of the Big D Nation. One more thing. A different port of this with sort of the same music and some of the same stages would be included in the game The Hyperstone Heist for Sega Genesis. I was thinking of doing that, but I'll save that for later, even though it is factually the same thing as Turtles in Time in ways, but just a little more with a little more slight changes and what have you. But again, I'll get to that in the future, okay? Just let me know what you thought about Turtles in Time. Which version did you play? Did you ever play the arcade game or the SNES port? Well, just let me know. Join me next time when I bring to you a review of the Masters of the Universe movie with Dolph Lundgren. Looking forward to doing that. So if you like this, consider checking out my reviews for these other Ninja Turtles games. In the upper left-hand corner is my review of the first arcade game, which also includes a review of the NES port, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. The upper right-hand corner is my review of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, the Manhattan Project. And the bottom left-hand corner is my review of the one that started it all. The first game. I'm just going to do that in no particular order for the NES. And the bottom right hand corner is the button you can click to subscribe. If you like rankings and reviews on movies, TV, music, video games, etc., then I'm your guy. Thank you for watching. Until next time, I'm the Big D saying, see ya.